very grateful to you all for coming. And we're working hard in this campaign. My name is George Demos, running for U.S. Congress to be your congressman. Thank you all for coming out. And I want to get to your questions more importantly, but let me just give you a little bit of my background. First of all, I'm running because our country is in tremendous grave danger because of what's happening in Washington, D.C. And you're all here because you care about our country and what's happening in that $17 trillion debt in Washington, D.C. and the liberals who are spending too much, taxing too much, and our country's headed towards a fiscal cliff that we may not recover from. And we see in Europe what's happening. We see in Europe where millions and billions of dollars are being spent and wasted. And we're creating a culture in America where people believe that everything is free and they don't have to work for it. And the fact is, you have Barack Obama handing out Obama phones. You have people giving out things that people didn't earn. You have to remember in America that if someone doesn't receive something they didn't earn, it means that someone else had to give something that they earned something that they didn't receive. So we're working hard in this campaign. My background is I'm a former United States Securities and Exchange Commission enforcement lawyer, where I had the privilege and honor of representing the United States in some of the most high-profile corporate fraud cases America's ever seen, putting fraudsters behind bars, holding them accountable for the frauds they committed. And I want to bring that same fight to Washington. I live right over in Stony Brook with my wife, Krissa, and my little baby, Angelo. And he's a little older than that picture. He's 11 months now. He can pull himself up to stand, but he can't walk yet. So we're getting there. But I'm fighting for my little Angelo and all the little Angelos out there across the 1st Congressional District and across America. If you have a child, you realize how important the future is and how important it is to fight for the future of America. It's absolutely fundamentally immoral to have people who are bankrupting our country and wasting our resources. So the fact of the matter is that we have to fight for that, and we have this election coming up in 2 weeks. June the 24th is the Republican primary, and we're in a fierce and vigorous contest against my opponent, Lee Zeldin, and Lee's not a bad guy at all. I know Lee, we were acquaintances, and hopefully after this campaign we'll get along again. But the fact of the matter is that I have some issues with some of the votes that Lee Zeldin took in Albany, and we've made that point clear in terms of taxes, Obamacare, and the things that matter to the people of the 1st Congressional District. So we're working hard to fight for that American dream, to fight for the people who worked hard. And you're all here because you care about that. And I thank you so much. I see some old friends here, and who I've known a long time and are here and supporting me again. And we have great support across the 1st Congressional District. And we're doing that on behalf of people from all the way from Montauk to Smithtown and here in Port Jefferson, where we have great support, and we feel this momentum. You feel it every day. I'm out from the morning early in the train stations all the way to the late evening, and we do this, and we see people, we meet people, and you build that momentum across the 1st District. So we're doing that, and I want to answer any questions you have, but thank you all for being here, and any questions you have, I'd love to answer. Thank you again. Yes, sir.
I'm 58 years old. My wife is early 50s. Where do you stand on Social Security and Medicare? I'm told that your opponent says if you're over 55, nothing happens to your Social Security. You know, Medicare is 65. But if you're under 55, he wants to cut out Social Security for people that are under 55 when they're 62. Where do you stand on that? That's important to me.
Absolutely.
I'll get it.
You'll see
My wife won't.
on our flyer right there, we have on the very front, we have protecting Social Security for America's seniors. And the liberals will always demonize.
Well, what about my wife,
Yeah.
the 50?
I'll get to that in just a second. And the liberals will always demonize, and they'll always try to say Republicans are going to cut out Social Security. This is their old playbook. The fact is, Social Security is an earned benefit. You have earned it. You have paid into it. And therefore, it's not an entitlement. It's something that you have paid for. And we must protect Social Security. And we have to fight for it. The problem is that the liberals in Washington have been taking that money that's supposed to be earmarked for Social Security and spending it on every other program. So we can look for reforms for people who are my age, I'm 37, and people who are under 40 who are just entering the workforce, but absolutely not. Someone who's approaching retirement in their 50s, absolutely not.
What about a 50-year-old?
Absolutely. They should receive any retirement benefits that they have earned. What we're saying here is that you have to create a system that gets a better return.
Well, what would you cut off? Your cutoff, the age cutoff.
There's no age cutoff. What we're saying is you can reform the system so that you can have a system where it gets better returns. Because right now you put that money in and the government spends it right out. Anyone who has an IRA account or a Roth account will get more returns, 15, 20%. So what we're saying is that that money can earn a better return.
Well, will you have a reserve if there's a downturn, like in 08?
Yes.
If the market goes all the way down and there's a catastrophe, will you have some kind of reserve to keep it?
Absolutely. You need to make sure that you protect Social Security. The problem is that the liberals take that money and they spend it on every other program.
Well, they borrow it, and then
Right.
the government, full faith and credit of the government, they pay it back.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, unfortunately, though, when our debt is being run up to such a tremendous level,
17 trillion.
$17 trillion, they're not going to be able to pay it back. So the problem is the government losing their obligations and not paying those obligations. So the fact of the matter is, I will protect Social Security. You have my obligation and my pledge on that. My grandmother lived to 99 years old, and she depended on that check. I understand how important that check is. It's a check that the seniors have earned. And the idea that liberal Democrats are going to try to take that away and demonize Republicans, it's right out of their playbook. So you have my assurance on that, and we have to always
They're
fight.
going to take it away?
What's that?
The liberal Democrats going to take it away?
No, what they always do is they demonize Republicans, and they try to make that a campaign issue. So when Republicans say we need reform in the government, we need to cut taxes, the first thing they say is, aha, you're going to take away Social Security. That's wrong. And that's not right. Yes?
Could you speak a little bit to, everyone's saying, oh, I'm going to vote against Obamacare, I'm going to do this. I worked in healthcare. I worked with Medicaid, the Medicare. If you knew how little you get under Medicare as a senior compared to what Medicaid is
Not
giving
yet,
out,
not yet.
you would. But anyway, could you speak that, because obviously we can't just vote against Obamacare. We have all these systems in place. What is do you have any plan on, I don't understand what you just say, I'm going to vote
Yeah.
against Obamacare.
Well, first of all, Obamacare is the absolute wrong system to go on. We've seen the VA system now. You have an incredible debacle. Where veterans who served our nation are not getting the health care they deserve. And the fact of the matter is, that's right, they never did. And the fact is that is what's going to happen with our health care system down the road. So we need to make sure that we don't have a system that's going to collapse. Socialized medicine does not work. The fact of the matter is these people couldn't even run the website. They couldn't run the website for Obamacare. And yet we all put this faith in government that they're going to solve our problems, that they're going to create, solve these things. So I categorically would vote against funding for Obamacare. But then the next question is, what do? We have a problem. It's not a problem of quality. We have the best health care in the world. You work in the field, you know the quality is good. It's a question of access. How do you access that health care? How do you access the health care? And by the way, having health insurance doesn't mean you have access to health care. If a doctor doesn't take that insurance, what good is that insurance? So we have basic reforms that can put in place. Portability between jobs. There's no reason in America that you lose one job, you leave a job, that all of a sudden you lose your health care. That's wrong. You also have to have the ability to buy across state lines. No other product in America are you limited, and they say you can only buy a plan in your own state. Why is it that you can't buy a plan in Connecticut, New Jersey, Vermont, whatever plan is best for you? And that artificially ruins the market. And the third thing we can do is tort reform. The fact of the matter is that a lot of the lawsuits are driving up the prices. And you have people that are paying, you have doctors that are doing many tests that aren't necessary medically, but they're doing them to protect themselves from getting sued. Now, obviously, if the doctor does something wrong, they're going to be held accountable, but you can't have doctors practicing defensive medicine. So we need tort reform, portability, insurance across state lines. That's a good start, and that's what everyone can agree on. But we absolutely have to fight against Obamacare. It's the wrong system, and once again, all these liberals want to be judged on their intentions. They try. Well, you know what? That's not good enough. We need results. We need things that are going to help people. And I'm not interested in people's intentions. it's not going to solve the problem. So we have to fight against Obamacare, and I will fight in Washington, D.C. on behalf and fighting against Obamacare. Yes?
That has been attempted 54 times by Congress. So what difference does it make? That's the Republican platform,
Yes.
those 3 items. They haven't been published. They haven't been supported. 54 times that they brought up the issue of defeating Obamacare. They were defeated. So without a Republican president, you aren't going to get anything.
Well, first we need to get the Republican Senate back. And once we have that, we have the ability to move through. But the U.S. Congress has the power of the purse. All spending bills must originate in the House.
So why didn't they defeat it?
Well,
Because
sometimes
you're not right the bottom line.
Sometimes you don't have leadership in Washington. You saw the other night in Virginia what happened when an out-of-touch majority leader, Eric Cantor, was defeated. And he was defeated because he decided he wasn't going to listen to the constituents. He was going to do what he wanted and go through and pass all these laws that didn't reflect the people of Virginia. And so when you have the leadership of the Republicans in Washington, and they're not doing the right thing either, you need to have someone who's going to stand up and fight on behalf of our interests. So I reject the notion that you just give up and you say, they passed this program, therefore we give up. I think you have to fight for it, and you have to cut the funding, and then you have to offer the positive alternative solutions. Yes?
The problem in Washington is that no matter how good you or another candidate is, you get in there, and then one of the old boys takes you aside and says, now here's how you play the game. Because if you don't vote for my issue, I won't vote for your issue, and it goes on and on. How do we get ethics and morality and it's all compromise, and that's what the problem is.
I am running, I'm not the candidate of the party bosses here in Suffolk County. They have not endorsed me. I'm not part of the Good Old Boys Network here in Suffolk County. I'm not going to be part of the Good Old Boys, I won't be part of it in Washington. My opponent in this primary has Eric Cantor coming in to campaign for him on Saturday. I will not be beholden to those people, because I am someone who has proven time and again that I will stand for what I believe in, and I will fight against them. And the fact of the matter is that you need to have people of conviction, character, and principle who believe these things. One lone voice in the Congress can make a difference, can change things and move things forward. And you have my assurance that I won't go along to get along. And the fact is, I believe in term limits. All these things happen because these guys get there, they get comfortable, they stay for too long, and they don't want to leave. Look at Tim Bishop. He's been there for 12 years. He thinks he needs 14 years. Why? Is he indispensable? I don't think no matter what party you're from, you're not indispensable. Eric Cantor got down there in 2000. I'm sure he was conservative, and all of a sudden he starts becoming a liberal. The fact is that you need term limits. You need people. Our founding fathers didn't intend Congress to be a lifetime occupation. You left, you went, you served, you came home. You didn't make this your career. So the fact is that we need term limits. And I think we should start right here in Suffolk County by giving some term limits to Tim Bishop.
I go into the novel, but
Sure.
And I'm not getting it down to a specific thing. Are you? The question I'm asking is, how are you preparing yourself when and if you get elected for foreign policy too?
Absolutely.
Just how do you study? How do you get knowledgeable about it so that you know what kind of decisions to make?
Well, you start with broad principles that you believe in, and you believe in America's peace through strength. You believe that weakness invites enemies, and you see the feckless foreign policy that Barack Obama has now. You see a foreign policy that doesn't exist. I don't even think he has a foreign policy. Our foreign policy leads people like Vladimir Putin to roll into the Ukraine. Our foreign policy is giving mixed signals. And you see around the world, you see this incident now with the prisoner exchange in Gitmo, and I'm absolutely outraged, and I'm sure many of you are by this. Something is very wrong when we're exchanging 5 Al-Qaeda generals in return for someone that I guess they're saying was a traitor.
Taliban.
Yeah.
Taliban.
Yeah, Taliban, 5 Taliban in return for someone they said had deserted. Now, I don't know the facts, the full facts, and those will come out. But something is very wrong when Barack Obama is opening the doors of Gitmo and releasing these people. So I believe in a strong, secure national defense, building our defense, projecting strength throughout the world, and that's one of the few things that America has a constitutional role in, for federal defense. If you go to the Constitution, all of these things the government does, they don't have an obligation to do what they should be doing. But foreign policy and defense is one of those things. And so we have to make sure we fight on behalf of our principles of spreading freedom and democracy around the world, but at the same time, not getting involved in other people's problems. We're not the world's policemen. And we can't show up every time some third world dictator does something. But we have to defend our interests here. So you have my pledge that I will fight for our strong, secure foreign policy, and surely I'll get up to speed more. We're in Washington, and we will work hard to do that. And let me add another thing on that in terms of foreign policy. The first thing is that we start by securing our borders. That's where foreign policy starts. If we can't secure the American borders, then we're lost. A sovereign nation controls its borders. And if we have an open border that everyone's coming across, then we are in big trouble. Yes, sir.
Could you please just clear the air with this Nancy Pelosi thing?
Thank you, sir, for the question. I can't stand Nancy Pelosi. I have nothing to do with her. I've never met her. And what they're trying to say is that my father-in-law knows Nancy Pelosi and he's given her some donations. Therefore, I like Nancy Pelosi. I can't stand the woman. I will be voting against everything she stands for. The idea that you're going to base an entire campaign on 6 degrees of separation, that your father-in-law knows somebody and supports someone, I think is utterly bizarre. And that's what my opponent has based his entire campaign on. I wouldn't tell my mother-in-law what color couch she should have. I'm not going to tell my father-in-law what his politics are, and he doesn't tell me what my politics are. I've been a conservative, always have been. Back in 2010, Rush Limbaugh supported our campaign. We have Mayor Giuliani now supporting our campaign, Governor George Pataki. We have broad support. And the idea that Pelosi is supporting me is so bizarre, it would require you to believe that all these people are involved in a conspiracy with Pelosi. So,
And you can't put anything for us.
yeah, well,
Well, let's learn more about you, okay? There's signs out there to ask about your property taxes. Supposedly you have no record of paying taxes here in the district.
yeah.
And what have you been doing now? Now, you ran against Randy Altshuler twice, correct?
He ran against me, yeah.
We have, even in the organizer now, running the biggest business in the world, what actually have you been doing as a job
Okay.
lately?
First,
Maybe the past 8, 10 years?
yeah. First question. Absolutely, I pay property taxes. I paid $11,500 in property taxes in the house I'm in. These are the kinds of things that opponents will dredge up and bring up, but that's utterly bizarre. My job, I was for 7 years a U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission enforcement attorney.
What
Right.
years were you doing that? I'd like to
Yeah.
get from, right now, because you've been running now for several times against Randy Altshuler. What actually have you been doing besides running as a professional politician? We want somebody who has run, owned businesses, paid a payroll. You go down 25 years, you go down multiple these years, there are so many businesses that are out of business, okay? What actually, I want to know personally what you have done to ask those leaders.
Sure. First of all, these businesses are going out of business because the politicians in Albany are raising our taxes and ruining New York State and ruining Long Island. And everyone's fleeing Long Island. As I said, I was a U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission prosecutor, prosecuted white-collar fraud and corruption. I did that for 7 years. I then ran. I'm an attorney. I engaged in private practice. And I also did something else for the last several years. I've been working hard to rebuild the church at Ground Zero. It was a church, you may recall, that was destroyed on 9/11. And that church was St. Nicholas Church, the only house of worship destroyed on 9/11. And in 2010, in my first campaign, I was privileged to be able to stand with Governor Pataki at Ground Zero and hold a press conference and start that issue moving. So I've been engaged in working on that. I'm proud to report that church will be rebuilt, so I've spent time on that. And I'm also an attorney, and now I'm running for Congress. Yes, sir.
Mr. Zeldin has dodged this question. So, there have been several gun control bills either in the state senate or down in Washington, D.C. that are limiting the rights of the Second Amendment. So could you please tell me that whatever comes across your desk limiting the Second Amendment, how would you vote? Would you vote no or vote yes?
Well, I'd have to see the bill, but I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. And I believe that the Constitution says what it means and means what it says. And it's really disconcerting that every time we have a national tragedy, a really, a tragic situation, that liberals exploit that in an effort to limit the constitutional freedoms under the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment isn't designed for deer hunting. It isn't designed for sport shooting. It's designed for personal defense. And if you are an able-bodied person who doesn't have a mental history problem, then you have the right to bear arms unless they can prove that there's something wrong. So I strongly defend the Second Amendment. I believe that you have to have people who are going to stand up and fight against people who are trying to take away those rights. And the fact of the matter is that the New York State Senate this year funded the SAFE Act, which is an act that which restricts those rights. So I'm a supporter of the Second Amendment. Grace, you had a question?
I just wanted to add further to her question.
Yeah.
How many times have you actually put your name in the hat for a run for primary? It was before Randy Altshuler.
Yeah, no, 2010 is the first time I ran. And 2012, we filed the papers, got halfway through the process, and then withdrew to let Randy Altshuler have that shot. So this is the third time I filed, but the second time I'm running. Yes?
I'm increasingly alarmed by what I call the shadow government. We have all of these agencies that are just spewing out regulation after regulation. Congress seems to do nothing about it. And I think we're ending up with an imperial presidency where even when laws are passed, like the DREAM Act was voted down by Congress, and then the president just enacted it. He called it Dream Light by executive order. What can you do to stop this process? And to tell you the truth, I'd love to see the EPA gone. I'd love to see the IRS gone. I'd like to see the whole VA bureaucracy gone. But how do we do this? And what's your plan?
The fact is, we now have government by executive order, we have government by regulation, and government by bureaucrats. No matter what your party is, no matter what your beliefs are, the idea of the American system is that the Congress, who is responsible to the people, makes those decisions. Not some unelected bureaucrats who sit there in offices in Washington and decide what policy is and do whatever they want. We saw no better example of this than the IRS scandal. Now, Barack Obama didn't have to tell the IRS to go after conservatives. It's filled with liberal bureaucrats who know what to do and know who to target. And the problem is when you have unelected bureaucrats making policy decisions and going after people and they can never be fired from the government, the problem is that these are the people that then make the laws. And we have such a complex web of bureaucracy in America and regulations that it's virtually impossible for any citizen to comply with these. And what happens? If it's impossible for everyone to comply with it, it means you've now given the government the authority to come after anyone they want. If they want to catch you on something you misfiled, if they want to catch you on something, they will come after you. And then what happens? We're now the subjects of bureaucrats in Washington who aren't elected, and they're not electable either. They'll never get elected themselves. And these are the people that make the decisions and run our government. The Congress has ceded too much control to regulatory agencies. Those have to be scaled back. And you say, what is the Congress going to do? You go down there. You withhold the funding. You say to this agency, you're not going to implement these regulations, you're not going to get the funding for this unless you do what we want. These agencies report to the government. They report to the Congress. They report to the executive branch. They don't report to their own supervisors and sit there forever. So we have to fight against that. You're absolutely right. That's the core of our problem now in America. And you have such a tangle of regulations that no one can possibly comply with them. I'd also think that all regulations and all laws should have a sunset provision.
George, why can't
Yeah.
the Republicans do something about it? They're there, why aren't they fighting for that?
Well, I'm trying to get down there to fight with them, and I can't answer for why they're not doing it. You saw the House Majority Leader had to pay the price for not doing it. You need a new breed of Republicans who doesn't care what the bosses say, and that's why, in Suffolk County here, I've been opposed by the party bosses. The committees are opposed to me because they know I will not be responsive to the party bosses, to the leadership in Washington, to the lobbyists. I will be responsive to the people. And if I'm not, the people are the ones who will send me home. And if I do a good job, it will elect more people like me across the country to do this. And that's why the Congress is every 2 years, the House of Representatives. That's the part of the government that's intended to have the shortest leash, or at any time they could be sent home. But the fact is, these re-election rates, they all get re-elected. And they sit there and they accumulate power. They use their government franking privilege where they can send out mail nonstop, and they flood the mailboxes and they tell people that on your dime that they're doing great things, and they get reelected. So it defies common sense that you have people sitting in Congress for years and years, and regardless of party, who have done nothing. And look at Charlie Rangel. This guy's been sitting there for 40 years. Doesn't pay his taxes on his condos in the Caribbean, but that's okay because he's a liberal Democrat. He can get away with that. Yes, Grace.
Well, have you paid property taxes in Nutter City Hall?
Yes. $11,556.
And
Yeah, 3 cents.
will you publish the bill?
Sure.
You will?
Yes.
I have a lot of friends who are huge Tim Bishop supporters and campaign workers. I am not one of them.
Yeah.
And when the November election looked like it was going to be between Lee Zeldin and Tim Bishop, they had said that Tim Bishop was, concerned because Lee's a strong opponent and he had his concerns. But since you intervened, they're putting their feet up. They're saying you're doing it for them because if you get the Republican primary, you're going to take votes away from Tim Bishop's strongest opponent. And if you don't get the Republican primary, you have done so much damage to your opponent that Tim Bishop doesn't have to do anything.
I appreciate the question. Let me address it directly. The idea that the Republican nomination is entitled to anyone who hasn't stood before the voters, to me, is anathema to our democratic system.
You said years ago when you were previously running that you would not split the ticket.
Yeah, we're not splitting the ticket. The winner of this nomination will be the Republican and conservative nominee and
Not
will
the
defeat Tim
conservative
Bishop.
nominee.
Actually, yes.
Lee Zeldin has the conservative ballot.
No, because of an attorney. Because if I can answer your question, because he's an attorney, he can come off of that, and that can go to whoever the Republican nominee is.
If he chooses though, right?
Yeah, he can choose to stay on and be a spoiler. That's right. But I reject. Let me just complete that answer. I reject the idea that party bosses decide who the nominee is. I think the people decide that, and I will stand before the voters on June the 24th. And let me also note that Lee Zeldin did run last time in 2008, and he got trounced by Tim Bishop. So the idea that the party bosses decide who the best nominee is not our democratic system.
But
The people decide that.
by splitting the ticket, you're the Democrat and Republican. I mean, what kind of a chance?
Well, we have a tremendous chance.
You're giving it to Tim Bishop.
If you guys really wanted to ship out,
out,
you guys would come together to say, let the strongest run. It's the same thing they did with,
He's got a right to
with
run.
Mitt Romney. They tore him apart.
I think that the people decide who the nominee is. I reject the idea that the party bosses do. Hey, you got a question?
George, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Came down to see you.
I appreciate it. I know we're on different sides, but we've always been friends.
No, always respect. In Forrester, I live in the area, open South Setauket, been involved in politics. I'm 52 years old now, been involved in politics, living stamps since I was 16. My father, actually was ousted out of the Republican Party by the leadership last year because I spoke my mind, and I always do when I feel right. I went down and turned, I fought them, and I got reinstalled as a Republican committee. You're referring to them. I agree with you, I don't like them sometimes. This time, though, the committee people did not pick you. I 110% believe you have the right, and I'm back with those 3-4 fellows. You have the right to run a primary. But what you're saying about Lee Zeldin, stuff that you're spewing out, it is totally erroneous, false, disingenuous, and disgusting.
Okay.
And I think it's wrong, George. You're brilliant. I've seen you more times in my farm on 99 John Street than I've seen in Setauket or Stony Brook. I go to every meeting. I'm on the board of the Setauket Civic Association, my Civic Association. I was a fire department commissioner. I've never seen you in the area. Where do you resign?
Okay, you have multiple questions there, and I'm going to get to each one of them.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, and thank you for asking that. I answer all questions, and I'm accessible, and let me answer you respectfully. First of all, with respect to the idea that the committee didn't select us, do you know that the Republican Party refused to allow me to speak before that committee? This is the first time ever that they didn't hold a screening. They didn't give the committee people the courtesy of saying, I could come before them.
If they did, I agree with you, that's 100% wrong. But the only committee person, the still committee person that I believe is backing you is Jim. No other committee person. None.
We have
That's nearly 500.
we have many supporters, and you know what? Many people who are on the committee, and they come to me and they say, George, I don't want to say anything because I don't want to get thrown off that committee, but they're with us. But
I got thrown off.
well, that's the kind of behavior I don't like. So I believe that people make these decisions. You make this decision, you make this decision. And they make that decision. No doubt about it that the party leadership doesn't want me.
But who in your party said to say Lee Zeldin was a coward?
I never
The
said
man
that.
is not a coward.
And that was
I was
the
a police officer for 20 years. I was actually sitting
And-
every day.
and that was Tim Bishop.
Either way.
As I said in the debate, I honor Lee Zeldin's service. I honor the service of every American who puts on that uniform
You call him a liar.
and defends
You call him a liar, and that's wrong.
and defends our right to serve our country. So the idea that Tim Bishop's ridiculous minions.
I know there's only 2 weeks left, George. Talk about you and what you're going to do, and then people will either agree with you or they won't.
Absolutely, that's why I'm here. But with respect to that comment, the idea that Tim Bishop's minions, some of whom may even be here tonight, are saying that who said that ridiculous comment, that outrageous comment, and they're going to attribute it to me is ridiculous.
That I made a mistake,
Yeah.
I'll own up to that, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize, but every ad, regardless whether it's Zeldin's or yours, or just spewing, just accusing each other of line, that I just don't listen to any of those. It's a waste of money. And I don't want any of the shiny cards that come to my mailbox that are telling me the same lies. I just throw it into the recycle bin. I want issues. I just don't care about personality attacks. They're all lying. You say he's lying, he says you're lying. It's like
The
crazy.
good news is in 12 days you won't have those flooding your mailbox. They'll be all directed at Tim Bishop. Every one of them will be directed at Tim Bishop. Let me just come back to that, and I'll get to you after. So, with respect to the issues of this campaign, our campaign is focused on Lee Zeldin's votes on Obamacare and on raising taxes.
He didn't vote for that.
So-
George, I'm in the fire department, George. I got more experience in government than you do.
Hey, let me get to
I
let me
did
answer a question.
budgets.
Let me answer a question, and I'll.
It's erroneous. You're not saying this can't, I mean, you're gonna get hurt. Cut it out.
There's a lot of questions on the floor, and they're being asked,
Stop over
and then
there.
they're being interrupted, and he's not getting a chance to answer.
And I'll get to every question you have, and we can talk, and we can go for a beer after, and I'll answer all your questions.
And I get worse.
I'll get to your questions, but first, with respect to the issues, we have focused on that, and my opponent's entire campaign has been focused on the fact that my father-in-law is a supporter of Nancy Pelosi. So that is a personal attack in my regard. Our attacks have been on the issues, because you have to differentiate.
I haven't seen anything on TV.
George,
It's all personal.
We had an ad on Common Core, we had an ad on multiple other issues that
On what channels? I didn't see it.
George.
Fox News. We were on. We had an ad. We were the only campaign to do an ad on Common Core, actually, and we did that. And that was a commercial on our platform. Yes.
You paid your taxes, and
Yes.
you got a right to run. You said before, it's something that really worried me, maybe other people too, Obama's feckless foreign policy. He was going to bomb the Syrians because of the chemical weapons. He pulled back, and he asked Congress for permission. They wouldn't take it up. If you were a congressman at the time, would you have voted to bomb Syria?
The problem with this is that he drew a line in the sand.
Would you have voted to bomb Syria, lying or not? This is important, because we're tired of fighting.
No,
Would you have voted to bomb Syria? It's very important.
there has to be more details than that than bombing Syria.
You were around 6 months ago, you know what was going on, you know all the particulars, we all do, everybody knew. Would you have voted to bomb Syria if you were in Congress at the
I'm not
time?
authorized the president to do that, and let me tell you why.
Okay.
He drew a line in the sand. He didn't have to draw it.
Okay.
And when you draw a line in the sand, you better be prepared to cross it. You better be prepared to say, I will enforce it. America loses prestige and power when you say, if you do X, we will respond, and then you don't respond.
So in other words, what you're saying is it's the man thing, it's the macho thing. Are you going to put us into wars Are we gonna do any more fighting?
And no, I think America's been in enough wars, but,
I mean, the Crimea, I mean, you know, I hear all kinds of talk, we should be bombing them, and today we should be bombing in Iraq. Enough is enough, $1 trillion, 4,000 dead, 60,000 American boys wounded, legs off. I went to Bethesda, they got no legs, they got no arms. Enough is enough. We did enough.
I will not be authorizing.
So I'm hoping that you
I will not be
won't take that path.
I will not be authorizing and voting to give the president any authority to engage in wars that aren't vital to U.S. national security. Ed, you had another question. I'm going to get to all your questions. You sure? Okay.
What?
Yes.
Hi, how are you doing?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm a young student. I live in Suffolk County. One of the most important issues to me is gun rights. I heard your statement before about the Second Amendment. I want to know if you are elected to be my congressman, how you will vote on universal background checks.
Yeah. Well, we need to know who has a firearm, because if you have someone with a mental history, that's not someone we want. But I'm a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. The problem is when you have background checks that are quick and easy to conduct, it becomes a reason and an effort to deny people the right to carry a firearm. So absolutely, you check and see, make sure that someone doesn't have a problem in their past. But I will note, many of these tragedies that came recently, that wouldn't have happened, that wouldn't have mattered because they stole the weapons. Now, criminals will always get the weapons. Look at Chicago, the strictest gun laws in America. And there's a bloodbath in the streets. Look at Florida a few years ago. They had a whole situation where all the rental car companies, anyone in a rental car was getting attacked. Because they knew people in a rental car had a certain license plate and that person would more than likely not be carrying a firearm. So I do not want to restrict the rights of law-abiding citizens, but I absolutely do want to make sure that they don't get into the hands of people who are truly insane.
Thank you very much.
Yes?
I went up to that person there that has the sign about the property taxes. I said, George Stevens is in there saying he pays 11.5. They said they went to your neighbor. You rent. You don't own a home.
Yeah, that's right. I rent it.
Okay. So but my concern is that you're very transient. Like, I have 3 kids. I've been around to different community events. We have never seen you pull. You only come back, you see in a year and a half to set yourself up again. So my concern is, what have you done for our community? What events have you been involved with in this district that you're running for Congress? I haven't seen you around.
Well, I'm here now. You see me here.
Well, yeah, but this is self-serving for George Stevens. What have you actually have done in our community with the community? I mean, I saw you, when you were going against Randy Altshuler, and then you disappeared, and then you did it again, then you disappeared. And now I'm concerned because I went out there to go back to say that's not right to have a sign that's not truthful. And, renting a home and owning a home are 2 different things. So you're paying rent, you're really not paying taxes on a home owner. So I want to see what your real, genuine involvement is for our community in any events. We do a lot in this Green Village area. I've never seen you around for anything. So what have you done for our community? What have you done for me lately?
Well, when I wasn't running, I'm not a public person, so I'm not going to be out there like my opponent campaigning. He's a state senator, so you obviously will see him more. The idea that I didn't attend Republican committee meetings in between running, and therefore that disqualifies you to me, doesn't hold water.
No, but you're like a ghost. After that last primary, George Stevens, where is it? Do you really own homes in California?
I'm in church every Sunday, man. I'm in church every Sunday.
Is he involved with the church? That's great.
Absolutely. I'm on the board.
Well, then that was one of your answers to be on the board. That's great.
Not of this church, but at the national board of the church. I've been involved in helping to rebuild the church at ground zero. I dedicated 7 years of my life to fighting corporate fraud and corruption. The fact is that I care about our community, and I care about making it a better place and making Long Island a better place. The fact of the matter is that I am not supported by the party bosses. They've made this clear. I've made this clear. So if that's a problem, then
Who are you supported by?
I'm supported by.
Who's backing with all the money of the TV commercials? I mean, Anybody that has a little bit of knowledge knows the bombardment of those TV commercials, that's big mega bucks. You've got people in Port Jefferson waiting online for mission, for the mission company that are feeding poor people lunches. How do you spend all this money on a campaign? Who backs you? Who backs you?
Okay. We obviously have to spend money to get our message out.
Oh, I know you're spending money.
And,
Who is backing you?
I'm being backed by citizens across the first district. I'm being backed by, and the fact that my opponent is so nervous means that we obviously have tremendous support. You are right. I do not have the support of the party bosses. I have the support of many people across this district who are standing up and saying enough is enough. So we're going to take that message to everyone. I'm at train stops in the morning, and I'm knocking on doors. I've knocked on thousands of doors in this campaign, and we have that support. But it's not the people who are visible. It's not the people who are going to the Republican meetings. It's the people who are saying enough is enough.
Your donors. Where the majority of your donors are?
All over. We have hundreds of donors. Grace, we have hundreds of donors all over the first district. We have them all over the country. We'll do a filing tonight. You can see where our donors are coming from. It's due tonight, so Kevin's got to go work on it. Yes?
You're talking about donors, and on your website, there was a comment that one of Lee Zeldin's donors was a dumper in Robert Clemente Park. But yet, the town officials don't know who's dumper.
Yeah,
Or this town takes place. The investigators don't.
The town of Islip attorney actually filed a letter.
There have been four things in Newsdays. Not one time did they mention any knowledge of knowing who dumped it. So how do you know who did the dumping?
I want you to, the town of Islip actually filed a lawsuit against that company. Our only point was that, given what's happened here, that money, that company's involved in this, that he should have returned that money. That was our point in that. Yes?
The people who you have on your brochure, Giuliani and Pataki, obviously got elected by party bosses when they ran. Why are they involved in Suffolk County politics? Giuliani was a wonderful mayor in New York. Pataki was the governor of New York. This is Suffolk County. We need local support. And I don't know who that is. So,
Rudy Giuliani actually has a home in Southampton. But I am proud and honored that America's mayor has endorsed us. I know my opponent sought these endorsements and he didn't get them. And Governor Pataki was our governor for 12 years. Our governor, we voted for him here for 12 years. So I am very proud and honored that Governor Pataki endorsed us. And he's, let me tell you another story about Governor Pataki that's really tremendous. Back in 1994, he was the only state senator to vote against the New York State budget. It was like 61 to 1. 61 to 1. And every single Republican and every single Democrat went along with the bloated budget that Mario Cuomo had in place. And George Pataki was the only one who said, no, I'm not voting for that. And what happened? The people of New York and his party leadership ostracized him, they vilified him, and said, you're finished. But the people of New York rewarded him for that and elected him governor of New York State. So sometimes it takes someone to stand up and vote against the budget. And that's why this campaign has never been personal, it's been on the issues. I've contended that Lee Zeldin should have voted against some of these budgets and said, no, we're going to take a stand. New York State has a $140 billion budget. The state of Florida has a $70 billion budget. I don't think New York State needs a budget twice the size of a state that's smaller than it.
They have no services there.
But, and they have no property taxes
They have
either.
no services in Florida.
So,
There's no services. And when it's a hurricane, they get federal aid.
okay, I
We
have,
get snowstorms, we get no aid.
I have a different question. What information were you able to discover on the Common Core that led you to have a stand against it? Because we're all in the dark.
yeah.
We're getting little drips and drabs. I'm an educator, and the reading list is obnoxious. the children are learning about Islam, but our communities can't have a Christmas celebration or a Jewish celebration, but we have to learn about Islam. What do you know? What have you uncovered?
I know that education is best controlled at the local level. And when the federal government tries to control things from the national level, it invariably goes wrong. I believe that we're not the nation of France where at any given point the education minister can decide and tell us at any point what every classroom in the country is doing. We believe in local control of education. Common Core is accepted in New York State because they took the $700 million grant. And when that grant comes, all the federal strings come attached. So the fact is New York State has to stop doing these things, and the fact is Common Core needs to be repealed. There's currently a bill that my opponent has sponsored in the New York State Senate to study it for 3 years. I disagree. I think it should be repealed. The curriculum, everything I've heard from educators, has been that it's an absolute disaster. It doesn't teach children, and children have to learn to a test. We're not a system that manufactures students through an assembly line and teaches them for one test and not how to think, critical thinking, math, reading skills, the things that will educate you and the things that made America the greatest educational system in the world. So I'm strongly opposed to Common Core. It's the reason we did a television commercial about it. And I will fight to oppose Common Core as a congressman. I guess we can do a couple more and we gotta get to Yes.
It's a well-documented fact that congressmen tend to begin to change their political ideologies after a primary event in order to appeal to a mass number of voters. If you win the primary in 12 days, how do you anticipate your platform will change to appeal to more voters?
My platform doesn't change, my principles don't change. What you have to do is spread conservatism and understand that conservatism is something that helps people. The best and most compassionate thing you can do is promote individual liberty and promote economic growth. There's nothing partisan about a $17 trillion deficit where America is being bankrupted. There's nothing partisan about taxes that are strangling Long Island. Everyone from here is moving to North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida. That's not a partisan issue. Georgia. You know, the fact is that these are issues that transcend party. You know, quality health care and explain that Obamacare is not the right answer. That's not a partisan issue. So my response is that I will not be changing any platforms. I will be explaining and broadening our platform and trying to bring people in. And don't forget, the 1st Congressional District has more Republicans than Democrats. The fact is that Republicans have gotten fed up with Republicans, and they're not electing them anymore because they turned their backs on the Republican Party. So I will make sure that I can be a good and effective advocate for Republican principles, and we need to spread that to independents, conservative Democrats, Republicans, and to everyone, because after 12 years, I think it's time for Tim Bishop to go. We have time for one more.
I have more of a comment.
Yes.
I don't mean to like upset anyone else, but when I came here, it's almost like I'm hiring. It's like a job interview. You seem very lovely. I don't care if you're at the 4th of July parade. You know what I mean? I really don't. I want to make sure that you're doing a good job. I don't care if you rent your house. I know if you get hired for this position, you're going to be for us, not against us, because that's what we're hiring you to do. So I just wanted to make a comment that, you know, all the issues that you said, which is what I wanted to know. I wanted to know what the Pelosi thing was, which that makes perfect sense, because to tell you the truth, my own mother was in our political, you know. Anyway, what I want to say was it's really more what you plan to do, what you stand on, and I just thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for being here. Let me just conclude with thank you for being here. I thank the people who are not with us now for being here. I hope I can convince you in the next 12 days. And I'm not going to stop working on you. But thank you again, and I really appreciate it. We're working hard to spread our message, and I really appreciate you being here. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, I appreciate it.